I'm sitting with a creative professional whose talent and versatility have left a significant mark on various esteemed platforms and brands. This individual has collaborated with institutions such as MoMA PS1 and the Brooklyn Museum and has made a notable impact in the fashion industry, collaborating with private policy and opening ceremony. Their innovative designs have been showcased at Sony Music Hall, and their work has been featured in prominent publications such as Time Out Magazine, The Huffington Post, Them, and Hypebae. Additionally, they have contributed to their expertise as a designer for major brands such as Gap and Calvin Klein, and have also worked with Aloe. This remarkable career belongs to Pedro B. Vidalion Jr., yeah, also now known as Tito Vida.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to be sitting here with you.
Yeah,
and that was a mouthful to get through because you have a lot going on.
Oh my gosh, yes, I'm crazy.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess, where I would love to start off with is where was Tito Vida born?
So I was born in Pasig, Philippines.
Okay.
Me and my family were there, and we migrated to Hawaii first because my mother's sister was already in Hawaii, and so she had petitioned us to move to the States and everything. So we moved to Hawaii, and that was amazing because it's basically like Philippines, like an island.
And what age was this?
I was 2 years old.
Okay.
So yeah, it was crazy because right after I was born, my mom was a nurse and she worked overseas. And right after I was born, she had to work and went straight to Iran to work as a nurse, and I didn't even see her till 2 years later. Yeah,
wow.
So that's how a lot of us do in the Philippines, working overseas, and she was one of them. So when she came back, the reason was because we were planning to move to the United States and to Hawaii. So that's when I finally reconnected with my mom, and then we all moved together to Hawaii, and it was amazing. It was beautiful, still tropical weather, island, and everything. And then it was very expensive. We lived in a 1-bedroom house. And we were 5 kids and 2 parents, we were just trying to hustle and make money and just make a new life for ourselves. And then eventually through the Filipino community, we had the opportunity to move to Olympia, Washington, to start an adult family home care. And that's how we ended up in Washington State. And then that was really where I grew up.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I had the impression that you were originally from Ohio.
Well, I did eventually move to Ohio later on, after I graduated high school. But I grew up in a little town called Lacey, Washington, which is one of the Tri-Cities of Olympia, Lacey, and Tawana. But I typically just say Olympia because a lot of people don't know Lacey, and Olympia is a capital. So, but yeah, in a small, teeny, tiny town,
wow,
in the forest, and yeah, we were one of the few Asian families that were there in the early '80s, and it was a wild time.
Would you say that during that time you and your family were pretty close because of the circumstances of everything?
We were always very close. I mean, it's just tribe mentality, I think, and that comes from culture and just being Filipino, that we're always staying together as a tribe. So so when we were in Hawaii, obviously living in that 1 bedroom, we were physically close, but we really all helped each other out. And there were even times my father was he would always have different kinds of odd jobs and everything. And at some point he was working at the roller skating rink, as a custodian, but he would work night shift. But I have these little memories of us all. He would bring all of us to the skating rink at after it closed. So it'd just be me, my brothers and sister, and my mom, and he would turn on all the lights and the music, and we would roller skate while my father was cleaning and everything. Wow. Yeah. So we're always tight knit, super tribe mentality, and I think we felt that even deeper, especially when we moved to Washington State, because it was just oh wow, okay, this is a town of white people, and we're a very, one of the few Asian families there. And in Hawaii, obviously there's Hawaiian, Polynesians, and a lot of other Filipinos that lived there. So when we moved to Washington, it was really like, holy shit, how do we like navigate through this? How do we survive in this weird world? So I feel that then we were, I think, even tighter because we had to just really take care of each other. And I owe it to my parents for like making sure we didn't lose our identity as like Filipinos. So at home, my parents spoke Tagalog, which is like the national language. So we grew up learning Tagalog and speaking Tagalog, like in the household. Yeah, and then once we like left the door and going to school and everything, we would speak English. So it's kind of. I feel really grateful that my parents, really kept that in, because I know a lot of times there's a lot of pressure of people who, who migrate here. They feel that they have to really assimilate, lose their language, and really speak English only. But my parents were very like, just like adamant and very proud to like be Filipino, and they really like, I think, really installed that in all of us.
I love that. I feel to be able to connect with your culture and like not lose that regardless of where you are, such a powerful thing.
Yeah, it's so important.
And so where did you eventually transition from Washington to Ohio?
So Washington State, I graduated high school, and then I actually was, I really wanted to be a dancer. So I started training in ballet, classical ballet, and got really serious about it. And I ended up, I think when I was 17, I moved to Vancouver, Canada. I got like a scholarship and I started training there. And then after that, I moved to Royal Winnipeg Ballet. And then eventually I ended up in Cleveland on like a scholarship type apprentice thing. And it was the School of Cleveland Ballet. And I was there for about like a year and a half just by myself.
Oh.
Yeah. I was 20 years old. Yeah.
And then from there, did you make your way to New York?
Yeah, so when I was in ballet, and I had a really hard time with the culture and everything. And the only cool thing about the place where I was at in Cleveland, it was a very diverse ballet company. So there were people from like Japan, from Philippines, like all over, Cuba, and they were all around my size, So I was like, okay, this could be like a possibility. But there were a lot of things that come with ballet culture that like I just really struggled with.
Such as?
Just like body types, that kind of thing, and just like how competitive it is, and just how it could be really toxic, just how like you're spoken to and everything. And just like just having to be the best all the time, it can really kind of mess up with your mind. So I decided that I still wanted to be a dancer, but I didn't want to go into ballet, and there were other things, other kind of dances I could do. And so when I was in Cleveland, I saw Alvin Ailey perform. They were touring, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a really awesome company. It was like a POC company, and I saw myself in that, they had like Asians in it as well. And so I auditioned, and I got a scholarship to attend Alvin Ailey for their summer program, and then which eventually led to a scholarship to stay for their 2-year program. So from Cleveland, I moved to New York City, 1997, crazy, by myself, and just got the scholarship and just had to find like a part-time job and just try to like really live that New York lifestyle.
And was that part of your life where you were staying in the Lower East Side too?
No, so when I first moved to New York, I was living in Ridgewood, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
Back in the day. So if you can imagine, 1997, Ridgewood, it was such a different time. But I didn't feel scared, even though I was like gay and queer. I kind of felt safer because I was around other POC people, and I was just coming from these areas that were like, white neighborhoods and everything. So so I was good. I was like fine and everything. And then so that's where I lived. I was like on the L train, on the Halsey stop. And I was living with like, I think like 5 other students.
Okay.
Yeah, in this factory that turned into like loft spaces. And it was wild. It was like one big room, and all we had was like bunk beds, and we were all like broke. There was no bedroom. It was one bathroom. And there was like, I think like 5 or six or something like. And then we were all going to different like art schools. You know, some was like, you know, musicians, painters, dancers, whatever. And I was living with someone who I was going to school with at Haley, so we take train together and everything. But yeah, it was pretty awesome because like we were like 21 years old, living in New York City, living this like artist dream, in Brooklyn, and in this like insane loft, and like hanging out on the rooftop and everything, and like just hanging out with a bunch of like different artists. So.
And so you said that you and your family grew up really close.
Yeah.
And so what was it like being away from them first in Ohio to then being in a bigger, crazier city like New York?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I never felt like I fit in. Anyway, like even though
with your family dynamic.
No, in the neighborhoods that I was living in. Okay. So like at home, I felt safe.
Right.
Really, really safe. Like and my family knew I was like gay and everything, but it was never like a conversation. They just and again, I feel really blessed because they just let me be me as a kid. They let me be me. And I remember like me and my dad, our thing was either we watched cartoons or we watched the ballroom competitions, like cha-cha and like the waltz and all that. Like that was like our thing. And I remember being like a kid and like wearing a robe and just like pretending I was like dancing as a girl and like, twirling in my robe. And my dad would just be like, yeah. He didn't say nothing. He would just like sit there.
But he kind of already knew.
Yeah, clear. I mean, come on. It was clear.
I think that's so amazing just because through the work that I personally do, it's important to, tell stories and recognize that like we as like same gender loving people, queer people, LGBTQIA people, we have the opportunity. There's some of us who've had hardship, but there's some of us that have beautiful stories where we still connect with our families. And I feel like that's so beautiful that your family welcomed you no matter what.
No matter what, yeah. And I like, and I realized, when I would go to panels and stuff or just like events and hearing other people's stories, I started to feel weird because it was they were really only choosing people that had like traumatic experiences that were really like not great and sad. And I thought that, I think it would be cool to like show diversity and like how different people were grown up, were brought up. And so when people started asking me, I really jumped on that because I wanted to, tell another story as well. Like, yes, I am super blessed. I'm so grateful for it. But I think it's important for other people to hear that too, that hearing a gay story doesn't have to be about trauma, it doesn't have to be connected to trauma. Like there are other beautiful stories out there, and I owe it to my family, and I want to like turn them up and be like, I love them for that they provided this safe space for me and I can just be myself. And so it was crazy because when I'm at home, I'm living myself, I'm just like whatever, twirling, whatever, and I have 3 brothers and 1 sister, and I'm the youngest. And these 3 older brothers are like super jocks, they were like captain of a football team, captain of a basketball team, they're like hardcore jocks. They ended up in the Marines, Army, just really, really super straight dudes. But growing up, they never mentioned anything about how I acted, how I looked, how I dressed. Never, ever. It was only when I finally stepped out that door and had to go to school where everybody was telling me how much of a faggot I was and like how feminine I was and how much of a weirdo I was, whatever, which was so confusing as a kid. So, as a kid, I was like, how do I navigate through that? Like, I'm at home in a safe space, but now I have to like go into this world where I'm like being laughed at and being made fun of and everything. So luckily I had like those brothers that like I felt safe around, like we were in high school together. They protected me and everything. I mean, they would like stand up for me, or like in wherever we were, whether it's public or at school, they would stand up for me. But they never said it to me, and it was really, really awesome. And I think it's just my parents, they really just like installed that in us, like we are a tribe no matter what. And we have to take care of each other, and that's what they did. I was grateful for that. So for me, at home was awesome and a safe space, and I knew I was gonna miss them, but I had to figure out how to like live in this crazy world, and I wanted to. I wanted to get out there and like see the world because I was in such a fucking small town. There was like nothing happening really, and I wanted to like be an artist. I wanted to be a dancer. I don't know. I just like had all these dreams, and I was like fearless. Just like yeah, fucking doing it.
I first of all, the idea of people thinking that the moment that I just came across you and your work and everything that you do, the first thing I was saying to myself is like, this man is so fucking cool. Like, I feel like he doesn't even like know how to like control his cool because he's that cool. Literally, I kid you not.
Oh my God,
and so like the fact that you were saying like people have like other ideas, I'm like, they don't know what cool is. And second, I find it fascinating because through our conversations, I know that you're a junior.
Yeah.
And you're the youngest.
I'm the youngest.
So that's so interesting. Yeah. And one thing that I usually say to people all the time is the reason why like my mom and my dad have accepted me, even though like there are like some things that go on in my family.
Oh, yeah.
I say that like they love me and accept me because they see me in them.
Yeah.
And to love me is to love themselves. And I feel like that you are a testament of that with your family
absolutely.
as well.
So I 100% agree.
Yeah. And so then, from then, coming to New York, being in your 20s, being young, being away from your family, what was that time like being in New York?
Oh my God.
It
was the time of my life. It was
really
wild because I just turned 21 too, so I could really do everything. But I was also like insanely broke. But I feel like
we find a way to make it
happen. In New York City, you can make it happen. Mm-hmm. There's communities here. There's people that can help you. You just kind of make it work. And yeah, at that time, I was really into like house music and I was like in New York City, and it was like the tail end of the Club Kid era of like Limelight and all that. So those clubs were still open. So I went to those clubs, and I experienced it, and I saw like all the famous club kids that you watch like on TV, like on Sarah Jessica and all that kind of stuff. Sarah,
oh my God. Like Richie Rich.
Yeah, like all the people that you see. Yeah, so I was privileged enough to be here on the tail end where I got to see a little bit of it still, and went to Limelight, and I also would go to Twilo. It was like another like big super club in Manhattan.
What was Limelight like? Because I was literally talking about that to a girlfriend, and she went when she was in high school.
Oh my God!
And I'm just like, what? Like because I feel like that's a privilege living in New York. I grew up here.
Yeah.
And so like we would be going into these places so young.
Yeah,
and so like I never really got to experience Limelight. Yeah. And also to the fact that like you're giving me these dates, I'm like, wait a minute, like I don't know what your age is, which you don't have to reveal, sorry. But I'm like, wow, like Asians don't raise it.
Asians don't raise it.
Exactly.
Weird.
Yeah. So I was like, wait a minute. But what was Limelight like?
It was, it was a blur. It was just a freaking blur. We were just there and just like, stoned out of our minds. And then, but my choice of club was actually more Twilo. Okay. Because they were bringing in like some really dope DJs and all that, and that's when I was starting to get into like music more. Mm-hmm. And so Twilo was awesome. And we had no money to go, and like clubs were already charging like $20, back in the day. Mm-hmm. So, but back then you can go to like the record store, like you can go to like Liquid Sky, which was like a record store, or like Concrete Jungle was like another like record like CD store. I don't know if you remember those places. Mm-hmm. And you can go and see like a ton of flyers, and you go for all the raves and also for all the clubs. Mm-hmm. So, and the flyers were awesome because if you had a flyer, you can get in for free after 3 a.m. So basically, my friends and I, we would just stay up, and then we would meet each other. We'd meet our other friends in Times Square, and we would meet at the Dunkin' Donuts. I'll never forget it. We'd meet at the Dunkin' Donuts because it was like open, and people were like hanging out in Times Square. So we'd meet there at like 2:30 a.m. and hang out, kiki, whatever, and then we'd all walk to Twilo, just like on the west side, like by the West Side Highway. It's like this big super club. And yeah, we get in, we have like a little flyer, we're like all super excited to go with our like rave gear on or whatever, and and then we would just get in and we would like party till like 9 a.m.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel, is New York still like that?
I think there's still music happening. There's still after hours happening.
But till 9 a.m.?
Yeah, there's still after hours. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I actually just got asked to like DJ an after hours from like 3 to 6 a.m. So it's still out there. You just have to kind of like hang out.
Maybe I like am too in my own bubble. There was a time when me and a few friends we traveled to Berlin together.
Oh, right on.
And
I've never been to Berlin.
You've never been.
I know. So
they would.
I know.
They would love you.
You would love it. So yeah. Yeah, my homies there right now, and I'm watching this like story, and I'm just like, Why have I not ever?
I'm sure they would book you for stuff.
I would hope so.
Yeah, because I remember when I went there, going to Berlin like capped it.
Oh shit.
Because it was like going out and being out till 7 a.m. and it wasn't like Acties. It was like it would be like Bergheim would like be open for 72 hours, and people would be having sex, doing drugs, doing all these things.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, this is it. Literally, it was so wild.
That was so wild.
And I don't really do drugs. I don't drink often, and so. I just remember being there, and every time I'm in those spaces, I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, what?
You're really doing it.
Yeah, but so then, in terms of, so when did you get into DJing then?
It wasn't until bubble tea, honestly.
Really?
Yeah. But because back then, I was a fan. I was just a fan of music. I was a fan of house music, and, so I never really thought myself as a DJ. I just loved dancing. So I was a dancer.
What?
I was a house head, and I would dance with other house dancers and everything. And this goes all the way back to when I was in high school. Going to raves in Seattle, Washington, and driving down to Portland, and also driving down to California, and just dancing. I was just a super dancer. So I never really imagined myself DJing. I just love being on the receiving end of music and just dancing. So yeah, it wasn't until bubble tea that I started.
Wow. And then how did you and the collective come together?
So Carlo is a friend of mine back in 2014 or so, 2014, 15. And we were friends because we were in the same industry. We were both in fashion, and we both work in intimates. So he was designing for Pink, and I was designing for Gap Body at the time.
Oh, wow.
He was a guy. So we kind of knew sort of, it's a really small circle of designers and graphic artists and everything. So I think we had met at some party like Pink or something, some industry party type thing, and we just became really good friends because he's Filipino. He's also Ilocano, which is my mom. My mom is Ilocano.
Oh, wow.
And he grew up in Hawaii. So I was just like, oh my god, you're from Hawaii, da da da. I migrated there. We go there all the time, every year still. So I still feel like I'm from there. So we just connected on that. And then we realized we had the same taste in music. We were both hyper super fans of Aaliyah. That was our thing. And we were just really into R&B. R&B. And he was also in a band at the time, and he was starting to make music, make his own beats and everything. So we just really connected and kikied and everything. So he became a homie that I would always see out, and for me, when I go out, I usually go out alone. I don't really go with a crew. I like to go to listen to music, and if I see people, it's cool, and I think at the time, 1111 was open. Did you ever go to 1111?
No.
1111 was a club in the East Village, and it was 2 floors. And upstairs, Dijon would spin every Friday.
Okay.
And then downstairs, another amazing DJ, Michael Magnan, he would spin in the basement. But it was also a space where a lot of different types of gigs would just congregate to. It was never it never felt only Circuit or only Brooklyn, whatever. It really was inviting to everyone. And I remember always seeing him there. And so it was nice because it's another brown Filipino face, and then that's where I met like Polly and Nick. They were like all really good friends, and Carlo and Nick grew up together in Hawaii. Yeah, so they're like real old besties, from back in the day. So I would always see them out in clubs, and we'd be like the Asians in the corner, like hanging out, just like
gay Sex in the City.
Yeah, oh my god,
gay
totally.
Asian Sex in the City.
Oh my god, hilarious. Yeah, so we would be like hanging out, and I remember, and that club was really good because the music was really awesome. But then when you get into like all the other bars and clubs, we weren't really that into. It was really more like different types of music that we didn't really like. So I remember like me and Carlo, we were like, oh my god, I just want to hear R&B. And like R&B was like really hard to find in clubs. You just don't really hear it, unless you go up to Harlem and you go to all these other types of like bars and clubs. But in Brooklyn, you don't. I don't know. I didn't really find it. I didn't really see it in the East Village. So that was really kind of the start of our conversation with Carlo. I was like, God, I wish we could just like put on a Leah right now and just like dance and like with Brandy and like I just want to hear like R&B and hip hop. So then.
Brandy.
Yeah, so that was like our dream. We're like, we should someday we'll like have like our own like night somewhere, and we'll just play the music that we want to listen to, that we want to dance to, and just like have it like API and all that. And that's kind of like how the conversation started, and we talked about it for like about a year. Yeah, and because like we didn't work in nightlife. We were working.
Yeah.
We were working like
in fashion.
We were all in fashion, like Carlo was working at Pink. I was like, yeah. Nick was, this amazing interior designer that makes like amazing environments. And Polly was, he designed like embroideries and stuff for Ralph Lauren. Like we're all like in fashion industry.
Wow.
But we're not like nightlife people in terms of like producing or like DJing at all. So we didn't know how to do it. Really. So it was really when the Rosemont had opened in Brooklyn, and Carlo was like had lived like kind of close by there, and just kind of so we went there, we checked it out, and this funny thing is the Rosemont happened to have a Filipino beer in their like in their selection, and I was like, wow, they're selling this Filipino beer here, like what the fuck? And then I realized that one of the owners is Asian, and that was like his like favorite beer. So anyways, weird side story. So he had asked him, the manager that was working there, if we could just throw a little party there, and he was like, yeah, of course.
And that's how that whole started.
That's how it started, yeah. And we we didn't know when we were gonna do whatever, but I remember it was during the time where Trump kind of came into office.
I read about that with you guys.
So and that was like. Such a sad, dark time, and we just really kind of came together and just tried to be there for each other. Where we're just kind of, what are we gonna do now? And that kind of helped push us to just do a night for us, like for us by us. We're like, let's just do it for us. Who knows if anyone's gonna come? So we just kind of like, asked our friends to come through. Carlo does drag as Dijon, so Dijon was gonna perform, and then Nick was gonna do like decorations, and then Polly was gonna help with graphics and stuff, and I was gonna DJ, and then so yeah, we just like invited our friends, and then so Polly and Nick and everyone, they like created a flyer, and it's like this like image of like a karaoke like clip of like, and it's like very romantic and soft lighting and everything, and then the type was even like a karaoke, like how we spell out like all the text and everything. So it's kind of like like, okay, if you're Asian, you want to go to the party. It's clearly like an Asian for Asian party type thing. So that's kind of how it started.
I mean, so in my type of work, it's important for me to celebrate a lot of us people who don't get as much, celebration as possible.
Yeah.
And, growing up, like I didn't have that much representation as being a queer person, especially being a queer person that's Black, African, all that other stuff. So like there was a lot of miseducation that I had. So, for
Yeah.
example, when I was younger, I remember asking my mom. I specifically remember there's two instances where I had very little education about being a LGBTQIA person. One was when I was maybe 11. I asked my mom. I was like, if two men have sex, can they create AIDS?
Oh,
Like
wow.
HIV/AIDS, and I did not have education about that.
Right.
I'm so glad that I'm at my grown age where I know about that.
Yeah.
Second point, I remember, and I hope this doesn't sound crazy or offensive or whatever. When I was 12 years old, me and my mom were sitting in Wall Street, and I remember I saw an Asian gay person for the first time in my life, and I said to myself, I didn't know Asians could be gay. And I say all this to say, where are we in terms of the pendulum of representation with queer, LGBT, Asian people? Before we continue with our conversation, here's a clip from the film Peace.
You what?
Always into the day I die.
It's funny because I'm from the West Coast and Hawaii. Everyone around me was API, right? It was a whole different thing, and well, not specifically Washington State, but in California, there were like queer Asian communities already, you know, and there was even clubs called Club Asia and all these other things, right?
Wow.
So on the West Coast. And I think it's because of migration that Asians have already been there longer, and so within those years had created their own like queer Asian communities. And I remember being 18 and in ballet school, I was probably in Canada or something, and I would come home for the holidays to see my best friend, and he's also Filipino, and he was going to UW, and he would be like, oh, we're all gonna fly to like San Francisco. I was like, oh, okay, let's go. So we would all, like a group of like Filipinos, we'd all go down San Francisco to like hang out with all the other API queers, you know. And I was like 18 at the time, so it was like already there. It was already happening, so it was like normal, right? So we would all go there, and there was this club called Faith, and it was 18 and over, and we would go, and they'd play R&B and hip hop, and we just had the time of our lives, you know. So we were just like used to being, you know, seeing the API community. So when I moved to New York and saw that it was like non-existent, it blew me away. I was like, where are we?
And this is kind of like the center of the universe.
Yes, and it was like the last, like not. Yes, it was like the last place that I would think that I could find my queer API community, and you know, and so I was like, okay, I guess it's different here, you know. But luckily, I was, you know, welcomed in like the Black queer community and also the Latino queer community, and I found, you know, my safe spaces there. And there was only one club in Manhattan. It was called The Web, and it was an Asian club. And I actually worked. Asian. Yeah, I actually worked there for like one night because you know, and it was a place where Asians could come, but it felt really kind of weird and fetishizing kind of thing. So when I worked there, they were like, okay, come at 5:00, you know, for like the clientele. And I was like, okay, cool. So I come at 5:00, you know, like no shirt on, whatever. Yeah. Okay. And I was like, fine, it's, you know, gay club, whatever. And I was like, they had me doing like Jello shots, and the clientele was only like older white men, you know. And, you know, so I was just like, this is really strange. Okay. So, and then it would go into the night, into like club time. And then more Asians would come, but it was like this feeling of like, and it was funny because it was called The Web, but it was as if like all these Asians are here, and for the white male gaze. So I didn't feel like how it was on the web, and this is my own personal experience. And I know a lot of people went to the web and everything. I even worked there, but maybe it's because I'm, you know, from the West Coast. I didn't feel like it was for us by us type thing. You know, it was like white run. You know, like creating the space for Asians, but then it kind of felt like let's bring all these Asians in for like the white men. You know, So that was the only really place to go. So with my friends who wanted to go, we would just go, and they actually had a hip hop room, so it was like really fun. But that was it. There was no other like Asian club party, and any other Asian night that was happening in Manhattan, it was like very like costume, like they went to Party City and they like decorated like how it's supposed to be Asian, like an Asian night, and it just like just kind of gross,
Yeah.
And so it was I just couldn't find that here.
Yeah.
So I think when we did bubble tea, and it's like years after, right? It's 2017, and we started bubble tea, and people came out.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, all these API people came through, and it kept people, as we continued to do the party, more and more people started coming, and eventually we kind of outgrew the small bar, and we had to find like bigger spaces, and we realized like, wow, to this day, 2006, there really is no like space that's specifically for Asians by Asians, so that's when it was like we realized it was bigger than us. It wasn't, we just kind of helped kicked it off, but it was really such a need. They're just non-existent.
I'm getting chills right now.
It was non-existent. Yeah. And I remember like I would, when we were in Rosemont, it was space where we could really talk to people and everything. I was meeting all these people who was coming. And I started hearing stories like, they're like, oh man, thank you for having the space. For one night, I don't have to be in a white space and compete with the other Asian for the male gaze. For one night, I don't have to explain what kind of Asian I am. For one night, I can just smile and like look at like, faces that look like me, and it's okay. We don't even have to talk about it. We can just have a good time.
I mean, because there was a point, and I feel like in culture, there like things go up and down and left and right, and people find. And so, there was a point where people say no blacks, no femmes, no blacks, no Asians.
Yeah, and that was the height of it too.
Yeah,
and that was another reason why, like, how like that it was actually important to create this space, And it was that was heartbreaking when all that shit like came out. So
I mean, I'm literally getting chills because it's just oozing beauty, and I love it. I'm not an Asian person, but I definitely connect to the community. I've grown up with like Asian family members and things like that. But like, so with your parties, like, that's like the fact that like Solange Knowles appeared in your party. What was that? Because I remember reading that you said you didn't know.
I didn't know. I had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea. I was actually it was a Christmas, like a holiday party that we were doing, and our main headliner was Slayers, Kayla's. And so I actually went outside to kind of walk her in and her entourage in. She like showed up in just like sick fur coat, whatever. She's amazing. I fucking love that bitch. And as I'm walking her in, I look to the side, and there's Solange is like right there, and I'm literally just walking by her, walking the talent in to go upstairs for like mic check and everything. I was just like, wow, that's so cool,
Like, this is where bubble tea is.
Yeah. At that point, it was like, wow, it was really huge at that time. Yeah, that like people started to like hear about it.
What were some other surprises that came about from your parties that you were like, wow, I can't believe that happened, or big or small, or at any scale?
I think for me, like, the thing that like I hold close to my heart is people like Humberto, who's like, who's owner of Opening Ceremony. He was always he was like our brother, he was always supportive from the very beginning, and he came all the time. He would always show out, bring friends, and just really celebrated us. And I love that he was like real close to his Asian community, and to the point where he would book us for some of his events, and even the privilege to be in one of his collections that they did for Opening Ceremony, where he highlighted API people within our community, and that was like super special. So that's like someone I'm just so grateful for, who still continues to turn us up. And then I'm also like Howen. Bowen.
Yeah.
I mean, he he loves going to bubble tea.
Really?
He'll like show up by himself and just have a great time, and he'll like kiki with us and hang out with us.
I was wondering that because I couldn't find any I didn't. Anyways, I think I might have saw a photo or whatever, but
so he started coming, and he was just like there. We're like, wow, he's here, and but he was just like totally chill and normal, and he was just like hang out and talk to us, and we're like, we should have a host. And so then we started having him host. Like he's like one of our hosts that come, and he still continues to come. Like he buys our merch and stuff, and he wears it, and so that's another like awesome special person.
You know, I wanted to know, because this was like a New York based party.
Yeah.
Could this have ever started anywhere else? Do you? I mean, like,
honestly, it's just timing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just timing and the need for it, you know. And we didn't plan for this.
Mm-hmm.
Like we weren't like, we're gonna become like these amazing DJ producers. We're gonna fucking like kill it. Da, 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 da. No, we're like weird, nerdy like designers that are like, you know, working
cool
and we didn't plan for it. It was really just what was needed at the time. So it's hard to say like if we could have done it anywhere else, because I think it was just so specific to the time and what was going on in the world and what was needed in our communities, you know. But the funny thing is, like, as we grew bigger, we started getting you know, messages from other Asians from all over the world. And he was like, oh, you should tour this, you should bring it to here, you bring it to da 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 da. And there were even people like from like Indonesia, like all over Asia, they would plan their vacation to come to New York around when bubble tea was happening. So they would plan it and they would show up. And that was like one of the cool things, is then we would actually meet the people that we would conversate with in social media. I'm like, oh my god, you came. He's like, oh yeah, we're in bubble tea. So that was really cool. But we're kind of like, we're not super producers like that. So our response was like, you should just throw your own party. You should just create your own thing, whatever. So you don't need us. Like we didn't know what we were doing. We just like came together as friends and family to like do this for us. And if you do that, it's gonna be awesome. Who cares who's gonna come or not? You know, like. So that was always our response to that stuff. So
you wouldn't do like a bubble tea LA.
We're actually doing one now, finally.
Okay, great.
Because we have our like, you know, sibling collective called Q&A, which is Queer and Asian in LA. They're LA based, and they're our siblings, you know. And we've been talking about it for a long time. We wanted to do like a collaboration where bubble tea peeps will come to LA, and then LA peeps will come to New York. So this Pride, actually, you know, June 1st is going to be like our first bubble tea LA in collaboration with Q&A.
Wow.
And then they're going to come here in June 22nd in collaboration with us. So that's kind of like the first like huge one. We have done smaller things like in Hawaii. Like last year we did for Hawaii Pride, we collaborated with the community there and like just did like a cute like end of Pride party there. But that's kind of about it. It was only Hawaii and now LA. Yeah.
I love that it feels like such a place of love.
And definitely,
like, you know, it's just like you can just do it yourself, and it's not like do it yourself. It's like, you know, we're everywhere.
Yeah, we're literally everywhere, and we're also old. Like I'm tired. You know, you guys can make this happen, please. You know. So.
And so I mean, we're sitting in the Bronx right now.
Yes.
Would there ever be a bubble tea in the Bronx?
Yeah, I would love that. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's needed, you know, why not? You know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like at the point where I want to kind of collaborate with different communities, just for me anyway. The beauty of where we are now, there are other API groups, there are other API collectives, there are other API parties that are like fucking killing it. You know, there's like Red Lantern, Bias, which just did a tour in Korea.
Wow.
Like there's finally options for us, and that was one of the things that, like, when we were doing a lot of interviews, people were like, well, how long are you going to do it? And we're like, well, until we don't have to, and I feel like now we're in a place where there are a lot of other really dope other API events happening, and we feel good about like not having to do it like every month and all that. So
I mean, like when you invited me to Brooklyn Museum, that was the first time that I did like first of the month. I'm such an indoorsy person.
Aww.
Just because, like I said, after Berlin.
Oh, right.
I literally like can count like anytime someone says come out, I'm like, okay, I'll come out. But I'm like exhausted, or I live like a million miles away from the city.
True.
So going to Brooklyn Museum was like so amazing, and like to see you do your thing and listen to your set, I'm just like, this guy is just so uncontrollably cool.
Oh my gosh.
And what is your connection to R&B?
So I grew up with it. My father was a singer. He played the guitar. Music was a huge thing in our household. We all played instruments. So my brothers had to play guitar. We were all in band and orchestra. So music was just constantly in our house. My dad was a huge fan of the Platters and just would sing all those like old tunes. And then obviously growing up in the late 80s and 90s, the height of Aaliyah, that era. That was it. When people always ask like, who's your diva? Who's your what is it, Madonna? I'm like, mine was Aaliyah. That was it for me. So it just runs like way deep. In terms of like R&B, and I also grew up in an era of freestyle. So that's when I learned like freestyle music, like Lisa and Cult Jam and like Buffy and all that kind of stuff. And at that time in the 90s, there were a few like Filipino groups that were out, like Kai and Penai, that were like R&B groups and also freestyle like remixes and stuff. So that's where it really comes from, and that's like really my heart and everything. So when Brooklyn Museum asked me to DJ first, I was like, what? They trust me to do this? Because like, if anyone's been there for Saturdays, it's like, it's for the community. It's for the Brooklyn community, And even when like I was asked to do it, they're like, well, you have to play R&B, I was like, oh yeah, of course, absolutely, yeah. That's like my life, of course I'm gonna play R&B. But I was like so excited and so honored that I spent like 3 weeks on my set, right? And I was like, oh, I'm gonna put it on this journey. I'm gonna start with like some really deep house, like from like the 80s, 90s, and kind of like go into like freestyle, New York style, freestyle.
It's so intentional.
Yeah, and then I'll go into R&B, like whatever. So I had it all planned out, and it was gonna be 2 hours of like this journey and everything. And I kid you not, like the second song in, the producer texts me. She's like, "You're gonna play R&B, right?" Because I was still playing house music, right? And I was just like, "Yeah, I will. No, it's gonna be good. I promise you, it's gonna be awesome." And then like another song rolls in. The stage manager comes upstairs. She goes, "You're gonna play R&B." I was like, "Oh my god!" I really just like 4 songs in. I'm like, "Yes, just let me get there," because I had like it all planned out. Like it was like whatever. And like people were like sitting on the stage, and just like kind of hanging out, whatever. And then finally, these 2 women that were up front in front of me, they stood up. And they took their phones and went like this in front of my face and said, "Play R&B," and like, "We want to hear R&B." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, give them what they want," I'm like, this is the culture, like it's call and response. This is hip hop culture. This is R&B. I was just like, fuck it. So I just like squashed my entire set list.
Shit.
And I was like, I'm just gonna play all R&B. So then I was just like, I played it all on the fly and everything. Just like played R&B for like 2 hours straight. Yeah, and just like, and it was really cool because Brooklyn Museum, it's all ages. So a lot of different ages were there. There were kids, a lot of older folks. They were dancing, and then I think it was when I was playing, like when I played Scenario. Somebody came up on stage and I was like all scared because I'm like on stage by myself, and as soon when someone comes up stage, I'm like,
That's kind of for me like, no.
Yeah.
That's your zone.
Yeah.
You're not invited.
Yeah, so he came up and he tapped me. He was like, I'm so sorry to bother you, but thank you for playing this song. And I was just like, oh yeah, you're welcome. It's good. It's all good. It's a party. And he was just like, how do you know this song? Because I think they see me as like this little Asian guy, just like playing a lot of really old like R&B and hip hop, and I was just like, oh,
little do you know.
Little do you know, I am turning 49 this year.
What?
So this is the music that I grew up with. So for real, yeah.
What?
And so he was just like, what? Yeah. So that was like. I needed that. Oh my gosh, I needed that moment in Brooklyn Museum because I'm kind of at a crossroads right now. I'm like, where I want to go forward with DJing, and that really that really reminded me that like it's all about the music. It's not about the hype or whatever. It's about call and response. It's about playing for the crowd, And I've always been that kind of DJ. I'm not one to just like play my set. Like, yes, I'll have a set prepared, but if people aren't dancing, I have to like feel them out. I have to get to know them, right? Regardless of what kind of like music genre of the place that I'm playing at. If you're not dancing, then I'm not doing my job. Like I'm here to make you move. I want you to have a good time. So that's always been like my thing. So getting that energy back, and like from the crowd and everyone doing the electric slide for like a half an hour straight.
I was like, Jesus.
They're still doing it. They're still going. And then, when I played Keisha Cole in the end and everybody was singing along, like you can't get any better than that. And I'm like, I'm so grateful for that. So grateful for New York. So grateful for Brooklyn, for allowing me the privilege to have that moment because it reminded me of the love that I have for music. It's
so refreshing and beautiful, and this is your beauty is the fact of having confidence at the same time, like challenging yourself and seeing where you can be. Because honestly, when I was there, I was like, this motherfucker knows what he is doing, and I'm like, whoa. And so like the fact that you're like, I think that's what makes life so exciting is to look forward to those moments where like, oh my god, like they called me and like, they're interested. Because when I saw you out there, I was like, this dude knows what he's doing. And that's why like I said a quick hello and I walked off because it was just like seeing like everyone do, and it was a lot of people. It was
full capacity. I think that's the most I've ever seen it there.
You throw parties like this all the time though, like
I do, but it's like I don't know, it's just a different I think it's because I'm not from Brooklyn. So for me to get invited to play in Brooklyn proper for the community of Brooklyn, not for transplants. I mean I'm transplant, but it's like I'm playing for an institution, the Brooklyn Museum, that has like amazing collections that like listen to the community of like what they want to see in art, and so that for me was like it just blew me away. It was humbling, it was beautiful, and it was inspiring.
I love that just because I list, like I said before, some of your previous accomplishments, and like it gets bigger and you still are as excited, and I love that. Yeah. And so with so would you say you're more of a Manhattan and uptown person? Like what vibe would you say that you are as in your place in New York? Because now you're like further uptown in the BX.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I see myself as global, and I see New York City to me as global. Like each borough is different,
Absolutely.
And so, and I love all of New York City. I've lived in every borough.
Not Staten Island too.
Not Staten Island. Sorry, boo. I was gonna yet. I've been invited, so. But I've lived in every borough now that I'm at the Bronx. So I've lived in East Village. I've lived in Queens and all parts of Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, Bushwick, Williamsburg. Yeah.
What would you say is some of your different experiences with each?
Well, I think also, like, when I lived in Harlem, that was, like, a turning point for me, too, because I moved from Ridgewood to Harlem to live with my friend up there,
Mm-hmm.
and that was crazy because I was like on 131st Street in Convent.
Okay.
And that was a very like deep, pretty hard neighborhood to live in at the
During
time.
what time?
This was, I think, 1999.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think I was the only, like, I didn't see any other Filipinos.
Okay.
And the only other Asian people that I saw that were like, they worked in the Asian restaurants, the Asian takeout, the Chinese takeout. Mm-hmm. So I remember going to the laundromat, right? Mm-hmm. And doing my laundry, whatever. And I was called Tito. And at first I was like so offended. How dare you? You know, like there are a lot more other Asians than Chinese. Yeah. And I was like really upset, and I was talking to my homie who was like living there. He was like, no, okay, I get what you're saying. Yes, you should, you know, you're allowed to like get upset. But he's like, you know, this is also a neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of Asians, you know, here. There's a lot of people here who's never left this neighborhood. Mm-hmm. They're not exposed to a lot of that. Mm-hmm. So, not to make an excuse for them to like, you know, judge you for like, you know, calling you Chinese or Chino, it's because they probably just don't know. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, I never thought of it that way, you know. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna get mad. I'm gonna say, oh, by the way, I'm not Chinese. I'm Filipino, you know. Mm-hmm. And then that was like a way for me to like be proud of who I am and not get like angry or get scared or whatever. So that was like that really taught me a lot being in that neighborhood, you know, because I thought I had so much privilege and stuff like that, but here I am in this neighborhood as someone who's not from New York City, you know, who looks like someone who could very well gentrify your neighborhood. You know, it was like super humbling. It's like, oh, who am I to get angry coming in here?
But it's also a human response.
Human response, right? But I'm glad that my friend was like, take a step back, you know, you have to also realize where you're walking into, you know. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a gentrifier, you know, like that's the whole cycle of gentrification is coming into a neighborhood and just feeling the privilege that you can just be who you want and get angry about it and not really understanding the neighborhoods that you're like trying to like take, you know, whatever.
How long were you there for?
Not that long. I was only there for like a year. Okay. Yeah. And then I ended up moving back to Brooklyn.
Continue being up to date with all things peace by following the links attached to this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's wrap up the show.
One of my first jobs growing up when I turned 16 is I worked at a local bakery in our neighborhood, and I would ride my bike and go there at like 6 a.m. and the bakers would leave all the stuff out and I would have to clean everything. So I've always worked in bakeries. Even when I went back to school for college, for art school, I worked at Simply Desserts in Seattle. That was another bakery. So when I moved to New York, that was like on my resume, right? So, and my friend who I was living with in Harlem, he was working at Magnolia Bakery in the West Village, the original one. And he was like, oh, I can probably get you a job there. I was like, okay, awesome. So I ended up getting a job. So I would go to school, you know, from 8 a.m. till like, I don't know, 4 p.m. And then I would go to work from 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. because Magnolia Bakery was open late. And yeah, I worked there for like a couple years. Wow. Yeah, it was crazy. That was like my schedule.
I'm curious, like, if you had to look back at like some of like your New York City moments, what is like a highlight moment that you can, I mean, there are many.
I know. Oh, that's such a hard question.
The first, like this is something that happened in New York that sticks with me forever, like an experience.
I guess Magnolia Bakery.
Really?
We were just a bunch of like artists. So the owner was obsessed with the 50s. So that's how, I don't know if anyone's been to Magnolia Bakery, but it feels like you walk into the 50s. And she would come to work with rollers in her hair, whatever. They had a full cosplay look of like, I'm a 50s baker. But she would only hire like like really downtown kids that were like artists that like really punky looking.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I had no eyebrows and I had my head was like shaved to here and I had long hair coming down like to here going to Alvin Ailey, right? And so I was working there. So I was working with a bunch of like artists and I met like so many cool people and so that was like a really fun time. And so Sex and the City happened. So I was there when they were filming that day, and we all had to wait outside till they were done filming. And we didn't know what was like. I didn't watch it at the time. I was like, what's going on? You know, trying to like work. Like, I need my tips. You know what I mean? So they came and they filmed, and then it became like insane.
Do you know what episode it was?
It was when she came to Magnolia Bakery, and she sat in the front, having her cupcake.
Wait, I need more context because I know this show like Bible.
I don't know the exact context, but that's the scene.
You're not a Sex and the City watcher.
I am. I watch it later.
Okay.
But if I don't really remember what happened in that scene, but she did come there, Sarah Jessica Parker, and have her cupcake, like sitting in the bench, you know.
Oh. I think I might have.
She sat outside, yeah.
With Miranda?
Probably.
Okay.
They're probably fighting or something.
Okay, I think I know what this is.
Yeah. So, and after that happened, after it aired, then it was like game over. Mm-hmm. Everybody started coming to Magnolia Bakery, and the line was literally around the block.
Wow.
But it was awesome for us because people would start tipping like crazy. You know, because they come into this like 1950s, you know, bakery, and there's a bunch of like punky, like alternative, like artist kids working here, being totally rude and sassy. Like they just loved us being assholes, so we'd just be like fucking assholes with that, and we'd be like, wait,
really?
what do you want? No, you know, just like no, you know, just like total asshole. But and people loved it, and they would just tip us 20s, 50s, So I made good money that year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a really fun time.
What other jobs did you have during your time in New York City?
Magnolia Bakery was pretty much my only job until I left and went to fashion school and came back, and then I started working in fashion. So yeah, that was it. So it was the time that I was at Alvin Ailey. I worked at Magnolia Bakery the entire time, and like we were making $7 an hour.
Oh my god.
Yeah, in the late 90s, $7 an hour. So we really relied on those tips. So we got really good at being assholes.
What would you say that's different about New York City then versus now?
I mean, New York City is constantly changing.
True.
Forever, ever changing. It's really, to me, it's about your own personal moment. We all have our own perspective. So like for me, I was like just a kid trying to be a dancer and living my best life and having the time of my life. You know, I can't say that it was better or worse than how it is now because there's still culture happening. It's obviously different, but I think like it depends on your journey and like why you're here in New York City and what makes you move here, or if you grew up here. It's your own personal perspective, and I think that's the beauty of New York City is it's constantly evolving. Of course, I really miss going to like the bars and clubs that I used to go to. One of one of the first bars that my friend took me to was the Cock. Okay, so
that place has been around forever.
Okay, so he took me to the OG one in the East Village, and I didn't really know what to expect. So he takes me in, and we're like, a couple of ravers, like going to, Ailey dancers, and he shows up with a blunt. He's like, okay, we're just gonna go in here, we'll smoke a blunt in the back. I'm like, okay, cute. So we go in, and the night was called Cock and Soul. And they even had merch that said Coca-Cola, but Cock and Soul. I'm so mad I didn't buy it. But Shakrita was the hostess.
That name sounds familiar.
Famous, iconic, legendary drag queen in New York City. And on the visuals they were playing Soul Train, just the video in the background, and DJing was Honey Dijon. And that's when I really.
When was this?
It was probably like '97.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I knew house music from the West Coast, but it just like hit different with Honey.
Mm-hmm.
And and she was DJing, and my friend was like a huge fan of hers, and so that's why he took me there, is because Honey's spinning. I'm like, oh, cute.
So
And she was spinning, and I was just like, oh, I've never really heard house music like this before. It just like hit different. And it was also like a small bar. It wasn't like a big super club. There was like space. People were just kind of like hanging out, whatever. And then there was the back room.
Right.
Yeah. And so here we are sitting at the clock, whatever.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, these two like bodies come out, fully naked, female bodies, with a chicken head, like rubber chicken head.
Like mask?
Yeah, mask on. And they're just like dancing. And I was like, where am I? And then there's like this Hasidic Jewish person there dancing with these two women that were fully naked, whatever. I was just like, what is going on? And we're just like smoking our blood away, and I'm just listening to, but I'm just like listening to the best music of my life. And Shaquita was the hostess, and there was another drag queen. I don't remember who it was, but I was just like, fuck? And then the two women who took off their masks, it was actually Amanda Lepore and Sophia Lamar. And I didn't know who they were at the time. And I'm just like, I don't know what. And then I found out later like how much of like iconic, legendary people they are. So that was like definitely a moment. And then
was it crowded?
No, it was like a Wednesday night.
What?
Yeah. And so it wasn't like packed. But my friend was like, oh, let's go in the back. I was like, what's the back? I was like, oh, it's the back room. I'm like, I didn't know what the back room was.
Oh my god.
I'm like such a weird, innocent, like little guy. And I was like, okay, because like, no, it's cute. We can like smoke our blunt back there. I was like, okay, cool. So we go into the back, and it was literally like this square room that had like couches all around, and then it was just like a lot of sex happening. And there was one light, and it was a red light bulb. And so we sat down like on the couch, had our feet up, just being like two young brats smoking our blunt, just like watching all the sex happening around us. Yeah.
It's everyone. I'm speechless.
Yeah.
Every time I've been to the cock once, but I never stayed longer than like 10 minutes.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I think it was like maybe twice I might have went, and like I think I was just scarred for like. When
Traumatized.
someone told me they went there and like that is a place where people go to get piss on. Like that's a thing there.
There's a lot of things that happen there.
You're like there's a lot of things.
There's a lot of stuff that happens there, and it was like fucking New York City. Like,
and like
crazy.
I meant like wow, like and it was a Wednesday night. It wasn't
a
like
Wednesday night,
maybe like 10 people or something like that.
Yeah, maybe like 7 people in the main bar.
What?
But then when you went into the back, there was maybe like 20 people.
Oh.
But still not a lot.
Because they were busy doing.
They were busy.
Other things.
There was a lot of acrobatics.
That's so. Would you say that like because it sounds like you have a deep love for New York? Was there ever a chance where you're like I'm done or
yes,
this is home?
Absolutely. Because New York is fucking crazy.
It is.
It's insane. I've tried to move out of New York. This is not my 4th time I tried to
Oh, wow.
I'm not joking. Yeah.
This place is a black hole, I say.
It's a total toxic relationship. And the first time I moved out was because I had broke up with my boyfriend at the time, and we were together for 7 years. It was my first boyfriend. We didn't know what we're doing. We had no idea how to like just be boyfriends or anything. And it was also like the height of my career a little bit. Like I was like a workaholic designing, and but that breakup really like fucked me up, And I realized that I needed to just take a break from everything, from New York, all the friends that we made together, and my job. Like my way of dealing with my relationship was to become a workaholic, and all I did was work, you know, and he made other decisions. But so I just was losing my mind, and I lost my hair, and I had like a bald spot, like just from all the stress, from like working and then breaking up with my my boyfriend, but still living with him because it's New York City, you know. And so I left, and I moved to LA. I quit my job. I moved to LA. I didn't work at all for like a good 4 months, and I found this like amazing loft downtown LA, and I would take the bus and just go to the beach every day, just like decompress, whatever. And then I tried living in LA for like a year, but not having seasons was really weird to me, because I was so used to like having seasons, because I grew up in Washington State, so we had seasons. So it was kind of like a weird time warp, just having perfect weather all the time. I know that sounds weird to like, of course all we want is perfect weather, but I realized that I need change. I love change. Like it was something that I needed, and I love the evolution. I love doing something new. I love a new challenge. So I was like, I gotta move back to New York City. So I moved back to New York City. But then of course, it's a grind, it's a hustle, and it's exhausting. And and when I'm here, I go hard. You know, like I love it here. I love my life here. I love the community. I love my friends here. So I can burn out kind of easily. So then it ends up making me want to move out again. But then I get pulled back again. And now here I am again, you know, and like, but I'm in a new neighborhood, you know, and I think that's also another beautiful thing about New York City is like, there's so many different worlds within New York City. Yeah. That you can like start over. So.
But if you like left again, where would you go?
Philippines. I definitely would love to live in the Philippines. Yeah, I started going there a lot more, say like from 2014, I tried to go a lot. And my parents were living there at the time. And definitely Philippines or just in Asia.
I've been dying to go to the Philippines. Can you explain what that experience like being there?
Yeah, it's a ton of islands. And there's a ton of different languages. So it's not really
violence.
No, islands.
I was like, I would not imagine it being like that. Yeah.
There's I think over 7,000 islands, and a lot of different types of Filipinos, a lot of different dialects. So I love the Philippines so much because it's not just like one thing. You can island hop and have a completely different experience and hear a different language. And even with the foods, you know, we all eat adobo or sinigang, but depending where you're from and depending what vegetables are available, it's just going to be different. You know, so if you ever go there, you definitely have to island hop and experience different parts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's stunning. It's beautiful.
I'm just like, I'm getting my life together so I can make it there.
Yeah.
And so, you know, with your experience being in New York City, what makes you a true New Yorker?
Oh my gosh. I don't know.
Because you've been here, like, once you've made the 10-year mark,
you're a New
Yorker.
Right, that's the default. I know.
And that's coming from a New Yorker.
I know. I feel awkward like claiming that because I'm not from here, but I love my experience that I have living in New York. You know? So that's, I don't know, just respect that. Respect New York in that way. Yeah. Because I'm such a fan and I love New York City.
Yeah. I mean, what would you say is, because of your impact in New York City with bubble tea and so many things, like curating spaces, 30 years from now, you know, and like gazillion of years from now, when people find something from like Tito Vida, DJ Tito Vida, what would they find of you?
Oh my gosh, I was super zany, hyper obsessed hype man that's like just wants to like hang out with this community and see like just the different events that I did and like the connections I've made in the community and connecting other communities. Yeah.
Wow. So I mean, we're approaching to my final two questions then. is what does expansion look like for you?
Oh my gosh, I think New York will always be my home base.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would say I'm a true New Yorker, but it is my home base.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm planting seeds here in the Bronx, and I want to, always have this as home. But I definitely see myself traveling, and DJing, traveling, and just really getting more intimate with music. Funny thing is, I don't have a SoundCloud. I don't have any mixes.
Oh wow!
So when people ask me like, my vibe, DJ, I say, oh, you show up, just come.
Wow.
So I'll tell them, oh, you come to this thing, I'm doing this, whether if it's a community event or like a rave or like an underground club, I just say, show up, just hang out, and you can see me, you can see my vibe, and how I am in that moment. So that's always been my thing, but now I have more interest in like doing edits and doing like music edits because I have like a few ideas that I really want to do, and I want to connect all the dots, connect all my references, and what's made me, the DJ I am today. That's really inspired me and influenced me, and I want to. I think I'm now going to make a mix, and now going to like work on some edits, and I think the Bronx is the best place for me right now because I'm away from the noise. I'm here, I'm able to like decompress. I'm here, I'm able to say hi to my neighbor and say hi to like the kids on the block, and go to a block party, eat some great food, and just be with the community and the people of the Bronx, and and be away from Clubland, which is Brooklyn, right? So I'm going to take that time to like really dive into the music that inspires me and find a way to connect those dots and hopefully come up with some like really awesome edits and mixes.
That sounds exciting. And I know this is like your peaceful place, like being removed from everything.
Yeah.
But if you decide to bring the party to the Bronx, it'll be well received. So
I would love that.
I encourage it for sure because there's so much lacking here in this borough. And growing up in the Bronx, like, to have space created for, young creatives is always, but then my final question is how do you produce peace?
How do I produce peace? Oh my gosh. With myself or just in general?
However you feel
Oh
connected.
my gosh, I guess connecting with people is producing peace. It's producing peace for me and for them. I am here, I'm a visitor, I'm a fan. So I think it's my responsibility and duty to connect wherever I am. So whether if I'm here in Ohio, Vancouver, Philippines, LA, Hawaii, like I want to connect with you. And that's my way of making peace with myself and the world that I'm in. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for your time. Like I just so like washed away with joy. Let the people know where they can find you. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Instagram. Tito Vida is TITO_Vida. And that's pretty much it. I'm pretty much only on Instagram. You find me there, follow me there, subscribe, and all my events are there. And just come hang out. Come party. Meet you on the dance floor.
Cool. Thank you. Peace out.